Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really sinking our claws into something that seems, I don't know, kind of basic on the surface, but it's actually way more complex, the world of cat playtime.
You got that right. We're going to dig into why playtime is so important for your cat's, like physical and mental health, and how to make those play sessions um, truly enriching, not just like going through the motions.
Okay, so get ready to seriously level up your catitude because this is about to get super fascinating.
Yeah.
One thing I've always wondered about is we always see those bursts of energy at dawn and dusk, like it's the feline Olympics or something. What's the science behind those crazy zoomies, and why does it always seem to happen when we're finally settling in for the night?
Well, it all comes down to their internal clock, you see. Cats are what we call crepuscular creatures. Basically, it means they're most active at dawn and dusk. For their wild ancestors, those twilight hours were prime hunting time. And even though we've domesticated cats for, what, thousands of years, those instincts are still hardwired in their DNA. It's really remarkable.
So even though my cat's idea of a hunt is batting around a toy mouse on the living room floor, her body still thinks it's time to stalk prey when the sun rises and sets.
Exactly. And it's fascinating, right, how these ancient rhythms still govern their behavior. And the cool thing is, if we can tap into that understanding, we can create a playtime routine that really syncs up with their natural instincts. It's all about working with them, not against them.
Okay, so instead of fighting against those internal clocks, we can work with them and make playtime more rewarding, for both of us. Man, I'm already seeing how this deep dive is going to be a game changer. But let's talk about a toy that's practically, become synonymous with cat playtime, the laser pointer. Is it really the magical source of endless entertainment it seems to be, or are we kind of setting our cats up for a frustrating game they can never actually win?
Ah, the laser pointer. A classic, for sure, and for good reason.
Yeah.
The little red dot, it triggers their instinct to chase, their predatory drive. But you've hit on a really important point there, the lack of a tangible catch.
I knew there had to be a reason why my cat sometimes seems more frustrated than happy after a laser pointer session. It's like they get stuck in this loop of almost, but not quite.
Exactly. You see, for a creature whose instincts are all about, you know, that thrill of the hunt, the actual physical act of catching something, well, the laser pointer can be a bit of a tease. Imagine, like, chasing something relentlessly, only to never have that satisfaction of actually catching it. It can leave them feeling kind of unfulfilled, even a little agitated.
Mm. So, how do we avoid sending our cats on this wild goose chase with that laser pointer then? What's the right way to use it?
Well, I think the key is to think of it strategically. Like,
Mhm.
don't make it the main event. More like a warm-up act. A few minutes of chasing that little red dot can really get their energy levels up, but you want to make sure you transition to a physical toy they can actually pounce on and capture at the end, just to really satisfy those hunting instincts.
Oh, I see. So they get that initial burst of energy, the thrill of the chase, but then they also get that deep satisfaction of a successful hunt at the end. It's like giving them the best of both worlds. Now, switching gears a little bit, I've heard from a lot of listeners who worry that their cats aren't getting enough playtime because they seem perfectly content to just entertain themselves. So, is it okay to let our cats have some solo play sessions, or do we need to be actively engaged with them all the time?
No, no, absolutely. In fact, I'd say encouraging solo play is one of the best things you can do for your cat. It lets them tap into those predatory instincts we were just talking about, but at their own pace, without feeling any pressure.
That makes so much sense. It's like we forget sometimes that our cats have their own rhythms, their own preferences. It's not always about us being the center of their world.
Exactly. Just like humans, some cats are more extroverted, more playful. Others are perfectly content in their own company. They're more introverted. The important thing is to provide a stimulating environment where they can engage in those natural behaviors, whether we're there or not.
Speaking of stimulating environments, a lot of our listeners are always asking about how to keep things interesting, especially for cats who, let's face it, can have the attention span of, well, a cat. What are some strategies for those easily distracted felines? How do we keep them engaged?
The magic word is variety. I mean, think about it. Even we get bored with the same old routine. And cats, they thrive on novelty. So rotating their toys regularly is essential. And don't be afraid to get creative.
So instead of sticking with that same feather wand day after day, we can create a whole toy library, right? Like different textures, different sounds, different movements. It's like building a whole sensory experience.
Right. Exactly. And when we're talking about tapping into those predatory instincts, one category I'm a big fan of is Toys that mimic the unpredictable movements of prey in the wild. You think about a bird flitting through the trees or a mouse darting through the undergrowth.
Yeah, like bringing those natural hunting scenarios right into our living rooms.
Exactly. You can find toys that flutter, that wiggle, even ones that skitter across the floor. Anything that mimics those natural movements can really grab a cat's attention. And here's a little bonus tip for you. Try incorporating some vertical space into your play area.
Vertical space. You mean like cat trees
Oh,
or shelves they can climb on?
exactly. Cats are natural climbers. They love to be up high, survey their domain. So giving them those elevated platforms, it just allows them to tap into those instincts and experience playtime from a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
You can even strategically place toys on those higher surfaces to encourage them to climb and explore.
It's like creating a mini adventure course right in your living room. Man, this is amazing. I'm starting to realize just how much thought, how much intention goes into creating a truly enriching playtime experience for our cats. It's not just about waving a toy around, is it?
It really isn't. It's about understanding their needs, both physical and mental, and then creating an environment where they can thrive.
Hmm.
And, a big part of that is learning to read their signals, recognizing when they've had enough. It's all about communication.
No, that's a really good point. I know I've definitely misread my cat's signals before, mistaking a playful swat for, oh, she wants to keep going. So, what are some key things to look for? What are the signs that our cat is, feeling overwhelmed or maybe even a little stressed during playtime?
Well, one of the most telling signs is actually their tail language. Instead of that nice, happy, upright tail wag, you might see a tail that's twitching really rapidly.
Hmm.
Or it might be all bushed out, like a bottle brush, or even tucked between their legs.
Wow, so it's not just about whether the tail's wagging, but how it's wagging. That's fascinating.
Exactly. Those subtle cues, they can tell you a lot. Other things to watch for are flattened ears, dilated pupils, any hissing or growling. Some cats even start grooming excessively when they're anxious.
Yeah.
It's a displacement behavior.
It sounds like our cats are giving us this whole dictionary of body language cues if we just know how to read them. I love that. But what about those cats who just seem, I don't know, perfectly content to just lounge around all day, completely unfazed by even the most enticing toys? Is there any hope for those less playful felines? Can we spark their interest in a little feline fun?
Yeah, it can be a little disheartening,
Hmm.
when you're all ready to play and your cat's just giving you that, I'd rather take a nap.
I hear you. It's like, come on, I even bought the fancy feather wand. But there's definitely hope for those less enthusiastic felines. Sometimes it's just about, finding that right kind of play style that really speaks to their personality.
So how do we crack the code? Well, first things first. It's always a good idea to rule out any, underlying medical conditions just to make sure there's nothing going on health-wise that could be, affecting their energy levels.
Right. So a quick trip to the vet just to rule out any hidden issues. Always a good idea.
Mm.
But assuming our cat gets a clean bill of health, how do we entice those reluctant players to, get up and get moving? What's the secret?
One thing I've found that can be really effective is appealing to their other senses. We
Mm.
tend to think visually, but cats experience the world so much more through scent, sound, movement. So instead of just a plain old toy mouse, maybe it's something that, smells like catnip or makes a crinkling sound or even flutters around unpredictably.
Ah, okay. So we're speaking their language, basically. The language of prey. I like it.
Exactly. And remember, even the most laid-back cat, they still have those hunting instincts. They're just buried a little deeper. It's
Okay.
just about, tapping into them in the right way. And another thing, especially when you're first trying to get them interested, is to keep those play sessions short and rewarding. Don't overdo it.
Okay, so starting small, building those positive associations, I can see that. But are there any other common mistakes we might be making during playtime that are actually without us realizing it, kind of dampening their enthusiasm?
Oh, absolutely. One that I think surprises a lot of people is when we move the toy directly toward the cat.
Yeah.
It seems intuitive, right? Like we're making it easier for them to catch. But in reality, that can actually be a turnoff.
Really? Huh. I'm definitely guilty of that one.
Yeah, it all goes back to that element of chase
Yeah.
and surprise. I mean, think about it. In the wild, prey doesn't typically run straight toward a predator. It tries to escape, it darts, it weaves, it's unpredictable.
So we have to channel our inner prey animal, make those toys unpredictable, keep them guessing. That's awesome. Any other expert insights you can leave us with before we wrap things up?
I think the biggest thing is just, don't be afraid to experiment, to find what works best for your individual cat. Some cats love that high energy chase. Others, they prefer a more, leisurely play style.
Mhm.
Just observe their body language, pay attention to what sparks their interest, and don't be afraid to think outside the litter box when it comes to playtime.
I love that. This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I've gone from cat owner to cat play expert in the space of 20 minutes.
Well, the journey of understanding our feline companions never really ends, does it? But that's part of what makes it so rewarding.
Absolutely. Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into the surprisingly fascinating world of cat playtime.
Remember, when you nurture your cat's inner hunter, it's not just about, keeping them entertained. It's about enriching their lives. And it's about strengthening that amazing bond you share.
Beautifully said. Now go forth and unleash the power of play, everyone. Until next time, happy hunting.